Yes, our party supports a new national housing strategy. We actually supported it in 2005 and had asked the NDP to help us to make it so in the 2006 budget. It didn't happen. The NDP conspired with the Conservatives to call an election in November of 2005, and that did not occur. But we will do that when and if we become government this next time. And the elements of a national housing strategy has to be based on partnerships between the three levels of government as real partners, partnerships with non-profit sectors, partnerships with private sectors, using within each governmental jurisdiction whatever they can to lever creating new, all across the spectrum of homelessness, affordable rental housing, the ability for young families to be able to have a first home, the ability for seniors to be able to have affordable rental housing in the cities and to be able to live in their homes for as long as they can, the ability to look at how healthcare issues are dealt with in a national housing strategy, community issues are dealt with in a national housing strategy, and so we need to look at that because a lot of seniors are being moved out of the cities and into areas outside in the suburbs where they have no friends and they have no one to contact. So we need to consider all of these things, community building, maintaining a sense of family, maintaining a sense of community, and looking at health as another component of housing, and environmental with retrofitting, green housing strategies, etc. So it's a complex issue, and we want to deal with the whole issue by bringing all the partners to the table to do so.
Thank you.
Absolutely. I've already mentioned that we fully support a national housing strategy, national housing plan. We're the only G8 country that doesn't have one. And our housing and homelessness problems they are world-renowned, especially in a city like Vancouver and downtown in particular. And so what would that plan include? It obviously has to include a solid plan with deliverables and measurables and the kind of tools to get us to the creation of affordable housing. We've already gone over those, so I'm not going to repeat them. Simply to say that it includes changing tax incentives for the private sector, and it includes a more decided role for the federal government in terms of funding to the non-profit or the non-market sector. Some of the things that I haven't mentioned so far, and why our platform earned an accolade from the Federation of Canadian Municipalities, is that we have a very robust program of support transfers from the federal government to local governments with comprehensive plans in place that deal with housing as well as transit, and that are oriented towards, what kind of cities do we want to live in the future? And the fact that if our vision is for more compact cities in which people don't have to rely so much on their cars, that have the advantage of living, working, shopping, entertaining themselves, all within walking distance or easy transit distance, those are going to be better off communities in the future. We have a program of incentive for people to invest in their communities and in those programs through green bonds. We brought it up in the last election. It would be people investing in secure bonds like a Canada Savings Bond to increase the livability of their own local community.
Yes, I do believe the federal government has a central role to play on the issue of housing overall. But it's not just low-income or social housing, it's the issue of housing and real estate in general, to be sensitive to this. This is the largest purchase of anybody's life. And this is something that is very precious, very important, and the government has to be very sensible about it in terms of all of our policies. Now the idea, this branding, say we're in favor of a national housing strategy, juxtapose that with every single other answer you've heard to every single other question that you've heard here this morning, which has been, that's provincial jurisdiction, that's local jurisdiction, we have to work in concert, we have to coordinate, we have to cooperate, we have to do these things together. So the idea that a national housing strategy could in some way just be developed because a political party gets elected without the consent of provinces and municipalities and working together is, frankly, I think, a fantasy. I can tell you right now that the province of Quebec, which is where 1 in 4 Canadians live, have no interest whatsoever in a national housing strategy. So a national housing strategy that doesn't include a quarter of Canadians is by definition not a national housing strategy. The best and most important thing that the federal government can do is be sensible to the changing realities that we have. Lydia had mentioned tax policies, how they come and go, and how these things have to be adjusted and reflective of the needs of communities. We've spoken about immigration, how new Canadians come in and face different challenges. We have a massive baby boom generation that's retiring. We're going to be empty nesters, so there's going to be new housing stock coming on the market. There's going to be an urbanization of seniors coming in, and what are we going to do with that? Young people who are trying to buy their first homes, what policies should reflect on that? The question of RSPs. This is a very complex set of public policy that involves all levels of government. So the idea that you can just say, we're going to have a national housing strategy and just declare that, it's not possible without the full binding consent of provinces and municipalities. Some provinces are outwardly hostile to the very concept of it. So the best thing that you could do on election day, if this is an issue that's of dominant concern to you, is elect people who understand the difficult dynamics of this and who are prepared to be responsive to all the aspects of this and working in cooperation with other levels of government.
Well, I'm glad that we're ending up with this question for this part, because I do think it's very central. And frankly, James, I think your answer is a cop-out. It's too easy now to say, oh, it's too hard, you know, to bring everybody together, blah, blah, blah. It just doesn't cut it anymore. I think when you get the Real Estate Board, you get the Federation of Canadian Municipalities, you get the Canadian Medical Association, the YMCA, you know, the Aboriginal Housing Association. I mean, there's 60 major organizations in this country now saying we have to have a national strategy. The bill that we've had in Parliament that's now gone through 2 votes successfully lays out that process. It doesn't actually say what the strategy is, because that is the process. That's why you've got to bring together the provinces, the feds, the municipalities, and some of the key partners, including the market sector and the not-for-profit sector. I believe we can do it. We're the only country that doesn't have such a strategy. I think that's why we're in a mess. That's why we have these, you know, start, stop, announce it 1 year, it doesn't happen the next year. I mean, this is just not good enough. This is not the way public policy is meant to develop. I've been very curious as to why the Conservatives wouldn't get on board with this. I don't know whether they see it as too much intervention. You know, to me, it's just a pretty basic thing that needs to happen. And so maybe the one thing that comes out of this meeting today, because I do see this really as a nonpartisan issue. I don't see it as a left or right. I see it as something that we've got to move forward on. So maybe what comes out of this meeting today is a better understanding that when whatever that new parliament is, we had better make this a priority. And I don't think it's just BC. I think it's every major urban area now that is calling for this. And I give the commitment of the NDP to follow through on our bill.
Thank you very much.
We're going to make it happen. Thank you.
Thank you.